It's 3:01, so welcome to Canvassing Stories. And Andrew, say hello to everyone. You're my co-host today.
Hi, everybody. Andrew from Boston at RK Center's Northeastern headquarters.
So how many centers does RK have?
I would say between both Florida, South Florida and New England, we're at about 85.
85. And how long have you been with RK?
Since 2012.
Okay. And how long have you been in leasing?
Since 2006.
Great. And tell them, and so let's talk about how we got to know each other pretty well.
So when I was living and working in South Florida, I worked for a company called Saglo Development. There may be some Saglo people on this call right now.
There are.
Those were the good old days, 2006. And at the time, there was a fairly small little leasing department, me and Marielle, who many of you know. And Beth was brought in to, in essence, train us in some of the finer points of leasing. Most importantly, out of the office leasing, including canvassing.
And we had the
in the office training, which was great, but there's no substitute for out of the office training. And Beth and I, Beth had the great opportunity to accompany me to a small center we owned outside of Tampa, where we would fly there every 2 weeks and canvass US 19 near Palm Harbor to try and fill a center that had fallen down into the high 30s, mid 30s vacancy. So it needed some real attention, and Beth and I made many flights and many trips to that center and to that area for that.
So I'll interject. So what happened is the client called me, as his occupancy was diminishing over months. He had just done a renovation a year before, or a couple of years before, and a bunch of tenants. We were in right after. What year was this that we had this?
2007, 2008, somewhere.
So it was right around the time of the crisis, and he had third-party leasing people. And over about a year and a half, I think is the time frame, or maybe 2 years, he had like 2 to 3 different third-party leasing companies. And I kept telling him, because he was very concerned about the diminishing occupancy. And I said, I really think that you need to get a leasing agent that that will work on that deal, and make that, someone that's in your shop. So either Marielle or Andrew or someone, and you should just send them to Tampa every week or every other week, and they'll get their arms around it and get their arms around the North Tampa area and go to the Chamber of Commerce meetings and canvass. And that's how I think is the only way that we're going to be able to lease this property. And I'm happy to go with them. Maybe they go. We weren't sure at the time if it was going to be Andrew or Marielle. I said, I'll go with them every few weeks, but or once a month, and they'll go every other week. And we just need to spread the word and canvass, because it was a beautiful center. It had just been renovated, and but there was definitely some challenges. So one challenge was, when people call and say, well, I canvass, but my market's so small. So I looked it up, Andrew, last night when I was preparing for this. There were only 50, right now there was like 60,000 people in that area. Right? So it was a small town that we were canvassing, right?
Yeah.
And the occupancy in the market that surrounded this deal. Do you remember the center across the street?
Yes.
How occupied was that deal?
I think there was one. I think maybe just Leroy Selman's or something like that.
Right. There was one tenant, I think, on an out parcel, and the whole freaking thing behind it, like 100,000 square feet, was empty. And I kept saying, and we talked about this. Every person we go to canvass, they're going to come look at our deal, and then they're going to call the guy across the street who's going to offer him a year free rent. Right. I mean, it was crazy.
Yes.
So Okay, so that sets the stage. So the client says, okay, it's going to be Andrew. And by the way, the client was concerned about the cost, right? Because I'm literally telling him that this leasing agent from Miami needs to get on a plane, go to Tampa every week or every other week, stay in a hotel overnight, and and there was a lot of cost involved with that. But but he finally said, okay, let's try it. So now, so we go on our first trip, right? And we just start hitting the ground canvassing, right?
We did.
How long before we had some traction? How many months before we started to get some people interested?
Yeah. I mean, these things, as much as we'd like to believe you canvas and you come away with leases, you're planting seeds, and it took several months before, they started to sprout, and repeat visits to some of the same prospects that got to know us. And we'd walk in to the point where they'd be like, these two again, the lady in the garnet and like the guy in the blue, colors of my company. So it took quite a bit of time.
Tell them about the baseball story. The dentist, right? Was he a dentist or an optometrist?
He was a dentist, and we did some snooping on social media and found out that this dental practice, he was a transplanted New Yorker and was obsessed with the New York Yankees and memorabilia. So we thought it would be a great way to get to his office if I found something on eBay, bought it. It was like a signed, I don't know, Mickey Mantle, nothing too crazy, but, it was maybe $100 or something like that. And I told him that we had something to bring him and showed him what it was. And we were in his office on that very visit, like in his, through the gatekeeper, straight to him.
And the reason we did that, if I recall, and correct me if I'm wrong, but you had found out in an earlier visit, either from him or his office manager, that he was out of space. He was looking to buy something in the market, and we thought we could get in there, and because we had a lot of square footage to lease, and we thought, well, maybe if he can't find something to buy, if he has to change his strategy and lease, we wanted to make sure he knew about our property, right? Wasn't that the deal?
Yeah, that's correct.
But he did end up buying something, and we didn't get to do a deal with him, but he knew other people in the market, right?
Yes. No, he did. And he's a local dentist that probably saw every single person in the town at one point or another every 6 months, if you adhere to the correct cleaning schedule. So, it's just the kind of, the karma you're putting out, and Beth talks about that all the time. But, these touch points with these prospects are important, even if they don't result in an immediate lease. Who knows how many people he may have mentioned it to, or he's just out with other people mentioning our center to whoever. And I should note, as a Red Sox fan, how horrible it was to have to even touch, that Yankee, those Yankee prizes were very difficult. That was hard for me, but you do whatever it takes.
Like, you kind of like me leasing to a Caneswear store, right?
Yeah, I don't know. Exactly. Beth, I mean, I think we all want to know how she lived with herself. But, money is green, right?
How about when I painted the light poles in front of them orange and green? That's really kind of when my Seminole friends were like really ribbing me on Facebook. Okay, so tell the story. So I'll start it and then you finish it. So we don't end up doing that guy, but we did get really goodwill. So then we were focused. There was a center down the street, and it was a perpendicular to the street center. And there was it was like an L shape, and this in the back space. So it's this 19 is the major corridor, lots of traffic. It's like a perpendicular straight, center, and then it L's, and there's a pet store. And we go into the pet store. It's phenomenal. It's like 6,000 or 8,000 square feet. We love it. And we go in there 3 or 4 times, and we cannot get, like, the gatekeepers were very tough there. But we started to make like some inroads with the gatekeepers. And then one time we're there, and tell them what happens.
I think I know where you're going with this one, but remember, this is a long time ago, so forgive me. But we're trying to get to the owners. It's impossible. They're elusive. They're never there when we're there. You know, you can't just pop in when you're flying from Miami. But we in our snooping around the store, we find that there happens to be coming up in a month or so some kind of dog
Right.
fair.
Well, yeah, your memories, I'm going to jump in and I
Okay.
love you. But I also want to remind or tell people that remember the building next to it was a dilapidated motel. Remember? So
Yes.
in the parking lot, it faced to like the north, this dilapidated 2-story motel that like druggies and prostitutes were hanging out. And we're like, how is this? And this operator, every time we're in this pet store, it was like jamming. So we go in there one day and again, he's been trying to get through to the owner, nothing. And so we start talking with this manager that he became friends with. And she announces to us that weekend, like, or maybe the next week, like 5 days later, they're going to have a dog-a-palooza at the local park down by the bay, Tampa, or like, Bay, you know, whatever the bay, St. Pete Bay. And they're going to have they're running this thing, this dog or pet a la palooza. And they're going to have like these tents and they're selling tents for people to sponsor this dog a la palooza. And we leave the business and I said, and at the time you had a brand new baby, right? You had like
Yes, like a
right,
2-month-old.
2-month-old. So I call his boss, or I call him and I call his boss and I said to him, we're going to call your boss. And I said, you need to bring Andrew's wife, mother-in-law, kid, put him up. It's Mother's Day weekend, put him up in a local hotel and buy a booth for the shopping center, right? To market the shopping center. And Andrew will work the booth. We'll get all this exposure, but we're going to get connected with the 6,000 square foot pet store, which we really want to relocate down the street, which they really needed to relocate, right? And he
Yes.
said yes, and you did it.
I did. I did.
You're sitting there with your stroller, with your kid and the booth.
Yeah,
and
exactly. The whole
right,
thing.
right. So more money the client had to put out. And did we do that deal?
No, we didn't.
No. So now so we walk in now, I'm up there canvassing and we go into a gym, a woman's gym. It was women, right? Women's only?
I don't know if it was women's only, but predominantly women.
Yeah.
I don't, yeah.
And Andrew and I walk in and she was about to start a class, like a one-on-one class. And you know, we did our thing like, hi, you know, we have the shopping center down the street. And I always say this, the woman practically spit on me,
Yeah.
right? Like she was very rude, very rude. And I promise you, I would have never gone back in there. No matter what I say, it takes 5 or 10 no's to get a yes. I personally would have never gone in. And all of the follow-ups I would ever do with Andrew, I never asked about that tenant or that woman because I'm thinking, forget it. Until one day I get a phone call, I'm in South Florida, and Andrew says, guess what I'm holding?
I remember. Yes, I do remember very clearly.
And
Right.
what were you holding?
It was like 5 months prepaid rent plus security deposit, you know, like well into the 6 figures, and a lease.
And I said, for who? How exciting. And then he goes,
yeah, Anne-Marie Fitness.
which is the woman who practically spit at me. And he goes, yep, I've been working her like you told me. It takes 5 no's to get a yes. Don't say no for the prospect, yada, yada, yada. And he made that deal. And that was the first one. Was that the first one?
That was really the first domino to fall because she was very well known in the market. And you could now say, hey, and you know, she relocated. You can ask her how we are to deal with, ask her about the center. You know, she's thorough. She's done her diligence. It's like when, you know, Burger King opens up near McDonald's, they just know that it's, you know, the work's already been done. You just go there. It's already, all set up. So that was the first domino to fall.
Yeah. And then how many square feet was that?
She was on the end cap, so I want to say she was probably around 5,000 square feet, something like that.
Right. And how big was the total center?
43,000 square feet.
Right. So it was a huge deal. And the fact that she knew so many people. So then one day we're canvassing, and now this is probably my 6th or 7th trip. And you've probably been there 12 or 15 times by this, right? And we're canvassing, and when we canvass, we would be canvassing like 8-hour days, like long days, because I'm flying in the morning, and we're going to canvass for 8 hours, and then I would fly home at night. And we saw a foot massage place, which was the first time I had ever seen a foot massage place, and I said, "Oh my gosh, this is my dream tenant, a foot massage place." And and then we just started talking about how I love pedicures, and Andrew says, "I've never had a pedicure." I went, "What do you mean you've never had a pedicure?" So I rewarded Andrew with his first pedicure. And that became, how you do that often now after long days and months of canvassing.
I do. If you're not rewarding yourself from canvassing with a pedicure, you're not doing it right.
So that was very funny. We took pictures. This is before social media. I was not on social media when we were doing this whole project. So there would have been some great pictures and stories. So what was the next tenant after Anne Marie that you signed?
So after that, there's a series of tenants, and I don't remember the exact order, but there was a custom T-shirt guy who was around in the area that we agreed to open. There was an aquarium store that came from the area that agreed to open. Then we had a national called Cash America Pawn, who I believe is still there. And we were able to relocate some tenants in the center to get them to take a large portion. They may have taken 12 to 15,000 square feet, something like that. And that was what, at that point, the momentum was really on our side, and we were like a legitimate center at this point.
Well, and then before all of those happened, so right around the time that he had all of those people, and we had some other people that were interested, some restaurants, we were flying home. We were on, I remember, Southwest Airlines, and Andrew said, I'm so frustrated because I have like 7 people interested and none of them will sign up. And this might have even been before Anne Marie. I don't remember. But, and we would go to these 7 people and say, if you sign, will you sign if I get this guy to sign? But they were all local mom and pops, and they just couldn't wrap their heads around that. So we're on the airplane, and I remember saying, oh my gosh, I have a phenomenal idea. Your boss is never going to go for this, but I think it's a really good idea. And we landed the airplane, and we called his boss. Like, I think we were still in the airplane. I said, I have this really crazy idea, but just hear me out. And he goes, okay. And I said, I think we should have an event. We had a Japanese restaurant that was getting ready to open, and we had joined the chamber. You had been attending the chamber events, right? Yep. Right? Yep. So I said, let's have a grand opening event at the Japanese restaurant. Let's invite the chamber, and let's invite, Andrew's got 7 or 8 really interested prospects that we just can't get over the hump. And this would be a great event to invite them to, because they'll see each other right there. Like, because even though we keep saying people are interested in the town, they're not believing us, and maybe they don't know each other, and they're not, I said, but we have to get them there. And how we're going to get them there is we're going to give away a bunch of prizes. So first of all, I want to give away like $300 Amex gift cards. And then I want to give away a couple iPads, which was a big deal back then. And then this is the part that I don't think you're going to like. I think we should give away a year free rent, 6 months free rent, and 3 months free rent. And I think that Andrew should create a flyer and go hand this out to the 7 people that he's talking to, and then the rest of, the chamber and everyone else we've been canvassing. And we'll pull that out of a hat. And obviously there will be an asterisk that they don't get the free rent unless it's an approved deal. Like, their financials are approved, et cetera. Right? You remember that?
Yep. Oh yeah.
And so that night I remember flying into Tampa thinking, I hope people even show up at this thing. We had no idea how many people were going to show up. So many people came. We had all of the vacancies open, propped open, and the whole night during the event, Andrew's showing space, I'm showing space, the boss is showing space. It was crazy. And then we go into the Japanese restaurant. You know, we had them, the whole thing catered. The chamber came. I remember driving into the parking lot and the parking lot being packed, which I had never seen that before there. And we proceed to, and exactly what we wanted to happen happened. All of the 7 or 8 people that were milling around knew each other from the community and said, oh, like, are you really talking to him? Are you really interested? So that was great. And then we gave away the raffles, we gave away the Amex cards and the iPads, and then we gave away the free rent. So of that night, we had a couple people that did some deals, but how many of the 3 free rent people did any deals?
Yeah, none.
None. So the best thing was we used that marketing incentive to get them there, right? And we even kind of pulled out people. I don't remember, was it random or did we, I remember that one deli that we really wanted to do. Did we kind of cheat and pull their name out?
We did. We wanted the Lucky Dill, which was,
Right.
and that was like, I mean, we never got him, but that was like the gold standard.
That was the Joe Stone Crab. Like if we could have gotten them, right?
Right, exactly. Like they're like a legit, well-known restaurant, and we wanted him to get the year, figuring between TI and whatever else, like he's probably going to get a year anyway,
Right.
for what he was asking. So he may have been the one that I drew out of the hat.
Right. I recall, I think we kind of a little bit cheated, but then, so we gave the year free, the 6 months free. And I remember the ice cream guy, I think got the 6 months or the 3 months. And then in the end, we truly, after that event is when everything, right, the snowball happened. You signed all of those tenants. In the end, we got up to 90 or so % occupied, right? Leased and occupied.
It was, yeah.
And your boss was able to sell the center instead of giving back the keys to the lender, which was great. What do you remember what the time frame from when we started to finished was?
Maybe 3.5 years, something like that.
So was it that long? I didn't remember that.
I think it was a really long, I mean, by the time we first started until,
I stopped going with you after like 9 months.
Right.
Right?
Yeah. So about a year. We were going for around a year.
Okay. So there, that was our canvassing case study where, except for the national, did you get the national from canvassing the pawn shop? No. Was that just a call-in or a broker?
It was a broker working with them in the market, but he knew, but the broker,
right.
Now, all coming back to me as the broker was a very local guy who said, wow, I've noticed, all this activity, like first you renovated it, then it was dead. And I thought it was just going to be like these others. And now I'm seeing like all this stuff, like what's going on here? Like he was definitely interested as a result of all the other activity. And we had to relocate, I think, one tenant to accommodate. They wanted to be right in the middle, right at the entrance. So yeah, it was right after, once we had gotten those first like 3 or 4 deals done. That's
awesome. So what do you guys think about that? I don't know. That Paul is asking, was the motel next to that where they filmed the Florida project? No, I think the Florida project was filmed in Orlando, but it looked worse than that though, for sure. So great canvassing project and very successful. I don't think it really took that long, but you might be right. It didn't seem that it took like that long, but maybe because I was only involved for a year. So I'd love to hear from some of you guys about some fun canvassing stories. Greg, do you have a canvassing story you want to share? Are you still on? Yeah, you're there.
Yeah. One story that probably is one of my better ones is, so it's a store called Molly Green. They were in, suburb of Homewood, some suburb of Birmingham called Homewood. And Homewood's, just kind of imagine a cute little downtown, fun area. And I'm walking through and I see there's like this stream of water coming out of this like back door space. I go, what in the world? I mean, I just being inquisitive as I can, I just kind of walk around, and it's Molly Green. I walk in, and I mean, their entire store is, I mean, it's got water coming out everywhere. So I dropped my bag, and I just started helping them like throw stuff on, get stuff out of the store. And, 3 hours later, we had everything kind of figured out. And I mean, we had to kind of dry everything. I mean, they actually had like some sidewalk sale because they had to.
Wow.
And from there, we kind of established a relationship. And about 6 months later, they moved that store to River Chase Galleria, which was my center. And they have since opened 4, maybe 5 other locations in the Southeast region. So Atlanta, a couple in Nashville. They've since moved the River Chase Galleria location after I left. But, so through that, they were, so that's a kind of fun story where they kind of, we just by chance happened to meet them. And then all of a sudden now there's some regional boutique retailer in the Southeast. So that was fun.
That's awesome. I love that. One of my other stories early on was my Nevada Bob story, where I had a center, a Winn-Dixie anchored center that was in an area where there was a lot of new golf course communities. So I figured, okay, so, I created my target list, golf store was in there. So I figure out in Palm Beach County that there's 27 golf stores. I go visit all of them. I narrow down to like 2 or 3. And one is this Nevada Bob's store. And he's down the street from me about 2 miles in a freestanding building. And he's in about 3,000 square feet. And the space that I want him to take in my shopping center is 6,000 square feet. So I go into the Nevada Bob's, and the first thing I have to identify or discover is if he owns the building or not, because it's a freestanding building. So I meet the owner, his name is Drew, and I said, I leased the shopping center, the new Winn-Dixie down, a couple miles away. And are you interested? And he said, no, I'm happy here. And I've got 2 years left on my lease. And I'm like, okay. So back then we didn't have a CRM program. We just, had like a 3-ring binder and like a tickler sheet thing. But I was married at the time, and my ex-husband's a golfer. So every holiday I would go in there. So Father's Day, anniversary, birthday, and I would go in there. And every time I'd go in there and I'd buy something, I'd have to remind Drew who I was. And I realized that, he never could, I wasn't memorable. So I learned that until the store owner, when you walk in, until they know who you are and can like associate you with a property, you don't have a shot. So finally, after about, let's say 8 or 9 months of going in every few months, I signed a huge lease. We had a second floor, and I signed a huge lease with this local hospital, like 18,000 square feet. And I was in the newspaper. So I cut out the clipping of the newspaper, and I wrote him a note, and I said, Drew, do you think your golfers, and it was like a wellness center, like where physical therapy, and, it wasn't like, where sick people go. MRIs, things like that. So I said, cut the article out of the newspaper and wrote him a note and said, do you think that your golfers would, do you think that the people going to this wellness center might be your clients or your customers? And I snail mailed it to him. So then a week after I thought he got that, I went back into the store, and finally this time goes, oh, you're the girl that did the hospital lease down at that Winn-Dixie, congratulations. And I'm like, yay. I'm like, yeah. So I said, well, what, I'd love to have you there. Is there any shot I can get you to reload? And he was bursting at the seams with merchandise, which is obviously very important because I wanted him to upsize. So he said, no, I've got a lot of time left on my lease. And I said, well, how much time do you have on your lease? Because I've been coming in here for like a year, and you told me back then, my first time I came in, that you had about 2 years left. So can you check? Because let me just tell you how this goes. The client, I work for a client that who is General Electric, and General Electric owns the shopping center. So it takes them a while to get a lease signed. So you may come see it, in the next few weeks. And then you may want someone else to come see it. And then maybe you want an architect to come see it. And then we decide to go to lease, and it could be 4 months before the lease is signed. And then we got to get permits and build out the space, and it could be a year and a second. So is your current landlord nice? Would he let you hold over? Like if we didn't miss the date? He goes, no, he's a jerk. And I said, have you ever thought about expanding? Like, have you thought about doing like the simulator thing? And he's like, and he had a couple customers in there like, yeah, Drew, we want you to have that simulator thing. So he goes, okay, let me check and see the date and I'll get back to you. And he did. And it was about 9 months. So I had set the sense of urgency up and we got the deal done. And he was there. I think I signed a 5-year deal with, a 5-year option. And I think he ended up retiring and sold the business. So they definitely lived out of that location about 10 years. And I got him to go from 3,000 to 10,000. So that was one of my favorite stories. So Jason says he got banned for life from an office building I was canvassing. The owner had his attorney send me a letter. So that happened to me once. I was canvassing early on in my career. I did office leasing, and I went in with one of my peers, one of my associates, and we're canvassing, we start at the top and work our way down. And the owner of the building shows up in the hallway and says, come here, you two, come here. And I'm like, okay, and my friend, so I'm like 5'8", and my friend was like 5'2", and a guy. It was very funny. And he's like, we gotta go, we gotta leave. And I go, no, let's go, and well, he's gonna yell at us. I said, who cares? So we go to his office and he goes, I'm gonna call your boss. Who's your boss? And I'm like, Stephen Patel, please call him. And so he's like, and he had this office where his like desk was elevated and we're sitting in these 2 little chairs. My friend was so nervous. And he calls my boss, and my boss is like, well, your leasing people should be doing that. I'm going to give them raises when they come back. And the guy goes, I don't want you ever in my building again. And so, yeah, we didn't ever go back to that building, but I have canvassed office space. Kara and I have canvassed office space. So yeah, so it's fun. You can't, that's our job. And what I'm doing with I don't know if any of you guys have caught the Small Business Saturday series, but that I've been doing. Saturday was the 3rd one. So we've done 6 episodes. Every mom and pop I'm interviewing, I'm talking all about their business, what they learned from COVID, what are they going to do when they reopen? But then I go, hey, I have a question for you, for my leasing peeps that are listening. Do you know what the word canvassing means? And only like one person knows what. So then I tell them what it is. I go, so would you have a problem if like someone walked in and, said that they had an opportunity? And they've all said, we would love it. So I cannot wait till I get like 20 of them. And I'm going to have my video editor cut and paste and put in a collage all of these mom and pops that say that they would love to have us canvass them, so that I can counteract everyone that says that the mom and pops, are worried that we're interrupting them, etc. I spoke to a tenant in Mandarin using Google Translate. I love that. I want to hear that story, Greg. Jump in and tell us that story.
That was me. That was Jonathan.
Oh, Jonathan, tell.
Yeah, so I picked up a center just outside of Tampa, and was just kind of making the first rounds of canvassing in the local centers. And it was a Chinese buffet, and I saw the owner in the back and ended up just kind of talking to him. And, I mean, not even a lick of English. So I was actually about to walk out, and then I was like, oh man, I'm like, this is a long shot, but I'm going to try to just write down hello on my phone, and then and you could just translate it directly on there. And then I was like showing him my phone, and you can actually do it audio as well.
That is fabulous.
So
go ahead.
So the guy ended up coming and touring the space. I ended up getting like financials, everything, letter of intent. We negotiated everything like using just Google Translate. I couldn't believe it worked, but and I, from what I understand, because I ended up talking to one of his friends who spoke English and Chinese, and she said like, wow, I can't believe this works. Like it's difficult to understand. Like it's not like perfect, but you can definitely get the gist. And we ended up going to lease, and like it ended up blowing up at least. But it was so close, and it would have been such a cool deal story. But
oh my gosh,
cool, but yeah.
Have you gone back to talk to him?
I haven't yet. This actually fell through probably in January, at the end of January. So.
I'd go back and talk to him. I don't know if Chinese buffets are going to be around anymore, and maybe he wants to open a new concept somewhere else, and he's going to love that you took the extra effort.
Yeah, well, it was his deal that he was going to do was actually he was going to keep the Chinese buffet there, but do another restaurant in my center, and it was for like wings and burgers. But we ended up, I mean, getting along pretty far, and then they
Follow up with him. Paul has a couple comments. One, he says, I have my name in Chinese on my business cards. It's 3 characters. When dealing with any Asian, I bow and present my card with 2 hands. Love that, Paul.
Interesting.
Love that. Love that. And he also says, I wonder how today's office leasing brokers. In my first year in Manhattan real estate, I went to the Empire State Building and spoke to every tenant in the building, all 1,000 of them, and did 8 deals in 18 months.
Oh my God.
Well, so I was in Albuquerque 2 years ago, and the NAI office there, and they had industrial, office, and retail. And when I go do the workshops, you know, we do 4 hours of classroom, and then I go canvassing with the different groups. And I went canvassing with the office team. There was about 8 of us, and we literally went through from top to bottom 3 office buildings near their office building that they had vacancy in that they were leasing. And we walked in, and what I would do is I'd walk in with like 2 people at a time. So like the other 5 people would wait in the hallway. Definitely thought we were going to get stopped. We didn't. And one guy, we walked in and we're standing at the gatekeeper's desk, and I said, hi. And I'm going to talk about flyers in a second because I think they're so important. So you're standing there and like, hi, we leased the Bank of America office building next door, and wanted to find out if you guys need more space, less space, you know, if you're happy here. And as I'm saying that, this man walks into the, you know, the double doors, like coming from the restroom, and he goes, what did you say? And I said, we leased the Bank of America building next door, and we're, you know, we've got some opportunities, you know, some big floor plates. And this was like about an 8,000 square foot big accounting office. He goes, oh my gosh, what perfect timing. Come into my conference room. And they ended up making a deal with this guy like crazy. So we didn't get stopped that day, but definitely I've gotten stopped more in office buildings. So what I try to do, if you know, Kara and I have one of my partners has some office space, and I would say once a month we would go try to do some office canvassing. But so what I like to do is when I go into an office building, I try to take a picture of the directory if it's not one of those, you know, like multimedia kind of ones. So that way, if I do get kicked out, at least I have a list of the tenants that I could follow up with. I'm sure there's much better ways to do it. But Greg was mentioning about a mall. I was once in, like, I want to say Detroit, canvassing with a team. I think it was the Ramco Gershenson team, and we were in a Detroit mall. We were canvassing, and all of a sudden, I remember I was in like kind of like a store, like a Spencer's Gifts, but it was a local guy, and I'm talking to the person at the desk, and I'm with 4 other people. We're standing there. It's clear, and we've got flyers, and this woman like comes walking in the store, and she's just standing there like this, and I see her out of the side of my eyes. I'm like, okay, we're about to get kicked out of this mall. And we finish, and we turn, and she goes, hi, are you guys canvassing? I said, we are. And she goes, I love that. If you need anything, my office is down the hallway, down by Sears. I do that all the time. Good for you. Shocked. I mean, a year ago, I think I was in Connecticut, and we were canvassing in a mall, and the security guard came and said, you need to get out of here. And I'm like, really? You know, and we were having such a good day. There were so many locals in this mall, and someone turned us in, one of the tenants. And he's like, yes. And so he goes, I will escort you out. And so he's escorting like 4 or 5 of us out. And I'm like, can I take a picture of you? He goes, no pictures are allowed, because I thought it was hilarious. And then as he's escorting us out, I just kind of take a selfie with him behind us with like the leasing team going, oh, we got kicked out of the mall today. So, all right, great stories, very impressive. Kara, do you have a story to share with the group?
Sure.
I'm gonna put you on the spot.
I have a couple times where I've been kicked out, so I guess those are kind of like not fun stories, but we did once. It was me and Beth, and I think we were with 2 interns, or I forget who we were with, but we were canvassing, and we came to a coffee shop, right? Remember? And we went to a coffee shop and got some coffee, and it's a pretty well-known coffee shop in that town. People love it. And so I guess we asked them, like, are you guys looking to open more? And then the guy was like, oh, yeah, we are. Here's our owner. Talk to him or whatever. The guy was super nice. And we're like, oh, we have this center near Sawgrass Mills Mall. It's like probably 20 to 15 minutes away from here. Like, would you be interested? And he got so excited. He was like, yeah, let's go now. Like, let's go see it right now. I'll follow you there. Let's get in your car. Sure. So it's 5 of us get in our cars and go on the highway, and he follows us to the space, and we had a showing and everything right then.
Yeah, that's never happened to me before in my life. But yeah, that I remember. He goes, well, finish your coffee first and then we'll go. And we remember the coffee was very, very strong.
We're like, yeah, come, let's go now.
So we're all driving and I am off my rocker. I'm like, that was really strong coffee. We're driving to the space. Let's show the space.
They're
I mean,
looking at the back, you're like, do you guys think that's strong?
oh, we
Beth,
got
it
some.
sounds like you were in the roasted bean on University.
No, it was out on West Pines Boulevard. All right, Andrew.
Well,
I
he
know
had one there too.
Okay, yeah, it was very strong. And he was like showing us the big vats, right? And Andrew, you've got some other funny stories. I know you do.
Yeah, let's see what's appropriate for the group.
How about that when we went, remember when we were canvassing in Boston a couple years ago and we went into the gym source? Do you remember that?
Ironically, this is just, might feed into philosophy. We ended up less than a year ago purchasing that building, and they are now a tenant.
Oh my gosh.
I was canvassing my own tenant and didn't even know it.
But tell the story because that was funny. That was funny. Do you remember?
So we went in, when started well, they were speaking. The rest of the group, the trainees, were speaking to this guy, and I had already been separately speaking to him on another, for another location elsewhere.
I think you were outside on the phone. So we're in there, we're talking to the guy. He's like, yeah, we're actually looking at spaces. Oh, you are? Are you? Oh, we're looking in this submarket. Oh, you are? Then Andrew walks in and he's like, yeah, I'm talking to a deal like in Dunham, whatever. And all of a sudden Andrew goes, oh, you're talking to me.
Yeah.
I'm like, oh, sorry.
Exactly.
Right.
Exactly. The crossing of paths is okay. Better to make sure it's covered than not at all, right?
Absolutely. I remember I was in Cleveland once and oh my God, this is a terrible thing. But so we're canvassing and I'm with like a team again of like 4 people and we drive into this center and I'm like, oh my gosh, tutoring, like educational gifts and toys. Awesome. And it was a huge store, like 6,000 square feet. And we had my client had an empty 6,000 square foot store. I'm like, this is perfect. Like, this is perfect. And Christmas is like, this was like in October, Christmas is in 3 months. So we can offer them a pop-up for free to see if they like, I'm so excited. So we go in there, we walk up there and I'm like, hi, we represent the center down the street. Are you happy with your location? Have you ever thought, are you happy with your size, your rent, your landlord, whatever? And they turn to me and they go, you guys evicted me from that last year. And I'm like, oh my God. And I was with 3 newbies, like rookies. They had no idea. I said, oh, I'm so sorry. And we walk out and I'm like calling, I'm like, did you guys evict the 6,000 vacancy that we're canvassing for? Did you have a toy and educational bookstore in there? Like, yeah. I'm like, oh, great. We just walked in there. It's like, uh-oh. I've learned my lesson about asking about that in the future. Stuart, tell us the story. Jump in. Can you unmute yourself? There you go.
All right. I'm not in the best place of my house, so if it's a bad connection, just go off of what I said. I was out canvassing one day in a city, and you and I did a video on this, Beth, at one of the conferences. And my phone rings, and the guy says, Stu, this is so-and-so. Do you remember me? And I said, yeah, we were talking about opening one of your stores in a different city than I was canvassing in. He goes, yeah. He goes, I can't do that city, but my brother runs a store in this city, the city where I was canvassing that day, and called me and said, we need to be in your city. In your center, in the city I was canvassing in, and we ended up doing a deal.
Canvassing karma. Who else has a canvassing karma story? So Paul says, another time I was walking up 3rd Avenue in Manhattan and I was behind 2 men who were discussing 5,000 square feet of office space. As they separated, I followed one and introduced myself. It was the broker. That's great. That's a great story. So do you guys all know about my Canesware story? I don't, only probably Andrew and Kara. So I'll share with you my Canesware story. And then if anyone else has any more stories, jump in or let me know. So I own a shopping center on this road called University Drive. And one day in like July, I'm driving into work. My office used to be at the center, and in the median of the road, it's like a 6-lane road, there are these little lawn signs that say Canesware Apparel with an address. And I knew that the address was in the warehouse area, like a mile from my center. So I go in the office and I tell my Kara at the time, who's Mackenzie, I said, did you see those lawn signs out there advertising Canesware Apparel, which Canesware means University of Miami Hurricanes? And she goes, no. Like, and there are like 40 of them. So I take her outside, I go, these. And she goes, oh yeah. I go find that guy, because you know, he's got apparel, which is hard to lease these days, and he's in a warehouse and he's advertising on the street. This is, I like the hustle. So she goes to find him. She finds the place. It's locked. It's like for appointment only. She looks in the window and she sees that it's full of merchandise. And so she goes, yeah, he'd be great, but he probably isn't paying any rent. So I said, okay, we'll try to reach him and tell him we'd make him a great deal. So what happens to most leasing agents? We forgot. Like I forgot about him. She forgot about him, you know, terrible, didn't have CRM at the time probably. So nothing happens until next July. I'm driving to work, driving down that street, and there are those signs again. You know, so he put up the signs like before football season was getting ready to start. Oh my gosh, we got to go find that guy. So, hold on. Mario, I need your help really fast. I need my computer cord. Find my computer cord, please. So, so I said, go stalk him and find him and tell him he's got to come, you know, make a deal with us. And now I know I've missed another football season. So I said, just tell him whenever, it might be by the brown table in the living room. Oh, thanks, Alex. Can you plug it in? Thank you. So, she gets through to him, and she says that he'll make, you know, that Beth is the owner and she's going to make him a deal. So, but he's too busy because it's football season. I said, we cannot let this guy out of our sight this time. We've got to make this deal. So she kept bugging him. And then in about February, in my office, my on-site office in the shopping center, I look up, I have like an office where I can see who's walking in, like, you know, like these windows. And I see this guy walk in with this Canesware shirt on. And I swear, I practically leaped through the windows and I went, oh my gosh, you're here. I remember him like going, oh, you know, I said, you have to come here. You have to come in the shopping center. And he's like, I can't afford this. And I said, no, I'm going to make you a deal. And he was holding a La Spada Subs bag, which is one of our best tenants is this, you know, very, very successful hoagie place. And I said, I've got a space right next to La Spada's. Let's go look at it. And it was, it was a leftover space from a Sprint expansion. So it had ceiling tiles hanging and, you know, it was gross. And it was about 1,100 square feet. I said, take this space and I'll do $1,000 a month during next football season. So, you know, I said, how much do you do in the warehouse? And he said, 300,000. I said, you'll double that here. So let's just try it for football season. You take it as is, you fix it up. And after football season, we'll talk. So he says, so he goes, let me think about it. So then he comes back, he's okay. So we make a deal. So for July through February or January of the next year, he's going to do it $1,000 a month. And he took it as is, and he ended up spending about 20 grand in there. It was kind of in bad shape. And he opens up for football season the following year, and the place is beautiful. I mean, he's a great merchandiser, lots of merchandise. It's fabulous. He's right next to the sub guy. He ends up doing $800,000 that football season. So to make a long story short, I ended up putting him on a real lease at like $40 a square foot, like maybe what we did is after that first year, he said, well, it's good for football season, but I'm going to die in this, in non-football season. So that first year, what I did is I said, you can pay $500 during the off months, but $5,000 for next football season. So then we did that, and we probably did that for 2 years. And then I went to him and said, okay, you got to be on a real deal. Like, this is a real business. He had exceeded $1 million. So we got him on a full deal, like $40 triple net. And then, and he kept leasing from me storage space. Like, he kept taking major, like, frontline retail space for storage space, because the guy just kept buying all this merchandise. The turnover chain t-shirt thing came out, and he'd have lines on game day, lines like down to my Panera, which is like 5 stores away. So I convinced him to move to the other side of the shopping center and double. So he was in 1,100 square feet. And now I think he's in about 2,800, where 1,100 of it is just his shipping. Because right before he moved, he was doing over $1 million in the store and about 800,000 online shipping. And he was literally shipping from the aisles in his 1,100 square foot store, like crazy. So it's a huge success story. Now, God, I hope we have football season, but he did combined probably over 2 million last year in the new location. He has this huge sign. I painted the light poles in front of his store orange and green, and he's a great guy. And what's so great is I'm always preaching that we want to have destination tenants in our shopping centers, because they bring a following. Like, the nail salons are good. I love the nail salons. But when you can have something like, a sports apparel store from a college, and the college is located 30 miles away from your shopping center, he's bringing people to our center that we would normally not see, and that benefits everybody. So that's one of my favorite canvassing stories. So, breaking news, Texas retail opening 5/1. All eyes on Georgia, right? So any other stories that anyone else wants to jump in and share before we close for the day? Did you guys like this? Did you like talking about this? Andrew, did you have fun?
I had a very good time. I hope I'm invited back.
You are, of course. Charlene, do you want to talk about this in public and jump on and unmute yourself? I love this. It's Bogota, Colombia. She said, do you want to do this? Jump in if you start talking, if you want to. I was canvassing a textile. Oh, I hear her. Go ahead. Tell us.
Yes, it's Charlene. Yes, I was abroad. I was living actually in South America, and a short while it turned into 6 years living in South America. But the story is, I started retail this way, and I was canvassing, just doing it on my own and learning the language. Walked in a textile appeal fitness concept. The sign said 40% off. And it was really on a main corridor. And I walked in, I asked if I could find out a little bit more about who is management and what is this fitness concept? Did they have more locations? Who's the best person to speaking to? And she said, well, you should contact the owner and I'll give you his card. And I said, great. So I reached out. He says, well, I'm the owner, but this is textile. It's my family-owned business, but it's really not doing great. And I said, well, I think I might have a tenant. Do you mind if I have a listing, and can I, earn your business this way? Maybe I have somebody. And he says, we don't really do that here. We don't have listings, but I'll tell you what, if you have somebody, bring it to me. And I said, sure. So I brought in corporate at McDonald's. We opened there on 71st. And 9th Avenue, which is basically the financial district of Colombia, Bogota.
Wow, that is awesome. I love that story. See, you never should say no for the prospect, right?
Right.
Okay, guys. So that is today's webinar. I want to share with you what I have coming up next. If anyone on the call is less than 5 years and you don't know about the freshman forum that we have on Fridays, please check that out on Azor Academy. Tomorrow, Greg, you're going to love this. I'm sure you already know, best books ever. So we're going to all discuss our favorite books that we've read tomorrow at 3. And then I think that is it until freshman forum, which is Friday at 4. So I've been trying to do less webinars because I think we're kind of having webinar fatigue, but I want to fulfill the ones I had already promised back 3 weeks ago. So I hope you guys had fun. Go canvassing. I love canvassing. I can't wait to go back canvassing.
Yeah, when?
I'm jonesing on the canvassing. That and concerts.
Me too.
I guess I'll be going canvassing on Friday since every store will be open.
You hope so. You know, Georgia, not everyone opened.
Yeah, it's a phase. From what I understand, it's phased. So if you don't have to open, you don't want to. You don't have to.
Kara, talk about the canvassing club before we drop off, because I think that everyone, would like to hear about that.
So I'm starting to get a list now of people who are in my areas in South Florida who want to go canvassing when this is over. And typically I normally go canvassing with people in the industry every once in a while, with friends and stuff, just because it's more fun when you're with other people. So it's kind of become a habit of mine anyways, but I'm going to start a more formal club, and then I'll probably go every week with 2 or 3 different people, and we'll go together and I'll rotate groups, and it'll be a way for people to form relationships and network and canvas. And it's really great because by the end of the day, you're like best friends with them because you've spent all day, like canvassing, eating lunch, hanging out with them. So it's really awesome.
And what's so great about it is when you set a canvassing date with a peer in the industry, you're not going to cancel on them like you would cancel on yourself, right? So it kind of holds you accountable, and you guys get to learn from each other.
Yeah, I was gonna say you can learn from each other. Like everybody has a different style and maybe different tricks that they use. So it's you get to see different points of view and things like that.
Jessica says, I've gone with Kara. She's awesome. And Alexi said that they want to canvas with you.
Yeah, I'm gonna put my email and then just shoot me an email.
All right, guys, have a great Monday. Talk to you later.
Bye. Bye, Beth. Thank you.
You too.
Bye.
Thank you.
Thank you, Andrew.
Welcome.